right, we took a short break, so we're back. So I think we talked about everything except maintenance. Let's talk about maintenance, and we have maintenance, and then we want to talk about EABs a little bit, and then we'll just talk about some of the statistics and things that we find in the pilot community today, and then we'll pretty much wrap this up for today. But maintenance, we've got part 23. We've got the legacy SLSA maintenance. Now we have the post MOSAIC LSA maintenance, and we have experimental maintenance. So you fly part 23 primarily, Joe. So tell me your concerns with the maintenance in part 23. I think you already alluded to some of it, but I'm definitely going to talk to some of the post
Yeah,
MOSAIC LSA stuff.
I again, my concern with maintenance on the Part 23 side is the the pipeline to get A&Ps and IAs to where they can do work. Supply and demand. There's a ton of aircraft out there that need somebody to fix them and then authorize them to go back to flying. But the problem that I see is that we're not cranking out enough mechanics or technicians, whatever the term is today. But if we don't figure out a way to uh, get people through the test, get people through the practical, and to have some experience, um, and what is it now? I think what you were, it's like 3,000 hours or 30 months, or what's the AMP thing? If you can't figure out a way to streamline that time, you're never going to catch up, and you're never going to have enough um, maintenance people to do the work. And it's always going to be expensive because there's not enough mechanics. It's already expensive because we
Yeah,
don't have
there's
enough workers.
yeah. Yep. So on the AMP side, to become an AMP, there's really three different pathways. You can go to a certified school, which is typically going to be like 2 years of college, or about 24 months. You can do it as an apprentice under an existing AMP, working under their supervision. And doing that, you need 30 months of documented experience that you log. Or the third way, which is brand new with Mosaic and, well, Light Sport. It's not brand new with Light Sport because it's always been this way. But if you get your Light Sport repairman maintenance rating, you can log the 30 hours after you already start working on the light sport aircraft. And something that's different, just to put this out there, something that's different between LSRM and AMPs working on aircraft. An LSRM has to have done the task before, which means you have to be certified, or like you have to have logged whatever repair you're doing, you have to have logged that repair and have done it before. The other thing is an LSRM has to use the approved maintenance manual step by step or AC 43-13. Um, so you can't take shortcuts basically. You have to follow the exact manufacturer instructions that the light sport aircraft are required to provide you. So just I wanted to put that in class and then just start working. As you go to that 3 week class, you get your certificate and it has to be logged. Now, that being said, in those 3 weeks, we're very busy doing things like learning how to do weight and balance, how to inspect certain things, do inspections, all of that. But are you qualified when you leave after the 21-day course? I don't think so. Um, and this is why people continually get additional training. So your point about AMPs and the shortage and driving the cost up is part of the reason that we have this light sport repairman maintenance certificate. and there's less LSRM in your LSR that's coming with MOSAIC. Now, the LSRM can work on any aircraft and can inspect any aircraft. The LSRI can go to a 2-day class and then inspect an aircraft that they own. So this goes back to your point about, well, if they miss something on the inspection and they hurt themselves, hopefully they don't hurt anybody on the mindset. And plus, a lot of these people flying these experimentals, they're going to know their airframe. They're going to dig into it to the point where they know the airframe and they're comfortable working on that airframe, or at least inspecting it to know whether or not it's safe. And the pilot has to determine that. I'm noticing, to your point, Joe, I'm noticing a lot of AMPs are retiring, and we're not seeing new kids getting into it.
Yes.
And I don't know how we fix that.
And as a pilot that rents airplanes, I've grown accustomed to all those baby boomers that are doing the work right now. That you know, they're following, they're doing the right thing. Now I know there's some bad apples out there, but how how are you going to keep the how are you going to keep the same amount of airplanes coming in for annuals? I know that some of them are going to fall out because of either the engine isn't going to have the right fuel, or the there's going to be so much work to get all the all the ADs complied with, like wing spars and this, that, and the other. All those fatigue cracks are going to start coming out on the whole fleet. But if you don't if you don't somehow streamline the process to get people to where they can work on airplanes, um, you're never you're never gonna you're never gonna keep up. I mean, it should not take what 30 what that's 2.5 years as apprenticeship to work on airplane. I mean, be real. Did it take you 2.5 years to understand
Yeah, they're pretty.
how to do some of you know, the engine work or some of the electrical work? I mean, I get it. They don't that you want people. You don't want just anybody cracking open a Garmin GPS and sticking the soldering iron in it and saying, "Oh, it's fixed." I get it. I mean, every product probably needs to have some sort of training process to, certify somebody on a Garmin 530. If you're going to be doing avionics, but on the basic mechanical, I think most pilots out there can read and take direction from somebody and have that airplane airworthy. So do you really need, I get like A&P, um, the A&P level, but where I think you really want to have some a higher standard is on the IAs, because they're the ones that are going to have to interpret what the A&Ps did, and did they do it to spec. Now those people, I get it. You might need
Yep.
an IA with you know extra training, 2 years of college or something that's very focused on that, figure, being able to see, you know see things that the A&P or the technician missed. Now that's where I think the knowledge, all these people that are doing the work, um, I think knowing how to put the engine back together by memory, uh, and then doing it to spec. You got to torque this and you got to have this type of of what do you call that? Loctite, whatever, all those things are very, it's a recipe. You got things to check. Um,
Yep.
so
Yep.
I don't get the 30 month on those, but I do get the 30 month or a lot more book learning or school learning or something for the IAs because the IAs are supposed to be, able to look at the piece. They're more analytical and more less hands-on, I should say, in the
Yep.
authorization to put something back.
So what's interesting is the LSRM working on a light sport. We are the equivalent of an ANP IA, but only on the light sport side. And I think to your point, the FAA said, you know, 2 years or 30 months experience for A&P. I think the problem is that the A&P covers rotorcraft, gyrocopters, jet engine, all those other things in addition to the simple aircraft and that um that was weird. We had a blip. That's okay.
Yeah, I lost you at gyrocopters.
Okay. So on the LSRM side of things, you have to have a category, a type like a category for the type of aircraft you're working on. In AMP, that 24 or 30 months covers turbines, helicopters, all those different types of aircraft. And they don't know where that AMP is going to go and work. And AMP can work on airplanes one day, helicopters the next, and jets the day after. So right now, the FAA lumps all that into big training, um, one big training course where if we wanted to get more AMPs, we could split that and do an AMP for aircraft, AMP for radar, actually get people through that required training a lot faster. I think they would be really smart if they did that because it would put more maintenance people out there. I mean, the reality is I can work on a weight shift. I can work on a glider, but 95% of what I'm going to do is going to be on the aircraft rating, like not the other ratings that I have for maintenance, and it's because that's typically what I fly, and A&P has to know everything about everything to be able to pass that test. So I hope at some point the FAA considers splitting that into a aircraft, airframe, power plant, and then adding like the rotorcraft, make it modular so that it doesn't take 24 months to get somebody through that course. I
Yeah,
think it would help a lot.
I'm surprised they didn't do that from the get-go because, I got to get a single engine land. I got to get a multi-engine land. I got to get, you know, I if you want,
Seaplane rating, type
yeah.
ratings.
So I I get it. Uh, Aircraft should, you know, probably the majority of the aircraft out there, not well, airplane. Let's use the category airplane. Airplanes nowadays are either uh, piston, turbine, and if you're lucky, you might get an electrical one. So those
Yeah.
are the three main power plants you got to deal with. Now, if you say you want to do rotorcraft or a helicopter, those are still the same three power plants. They're just going to be used. They're going to have different transmissions and a different way to deal. To to turn the rotor. So,
Yeah.
but like once you go to airframe, the people that got out of school that are doing the work right now, how many of them actually went into and learned about composites that are in the A330 or the A380 or the 757? How many of them dealt with composites? The baby boomers
And
that are
that's the
about
thing, like you really pick up the skill set for those individualized things like composites and aluminum or whatever material you're working with in the field after your certificate is issued. Yes, you cover them in the schooling, but all the tricks of the trade and the actual, like, I've learned more from other mechanics than I did from the school. Not to put down Rainbow Aviation, their course is awesome, and they've worked very hard to make sure that we've got 2,000 additional maintenance personnel or 3,000 or whatever their number is now. It's a lot over the past 20 years that can work on these light sports. But to your point, when you leave any school, it doesn't matter if it's an A&P or LSRM, you really are not qualified to go and work on that. It's not until you get with somebody who's doing that work day in and day out and you can see it and observe it and learn it to the standard. I mean, even like in the class, we dressed propellers, like we had Nixon propellers, and there's certain measurements you can do, and can you do a field repair? Can you, fix that? Can you fill it? Can you, file the material down? Like, what can you do to make that propeller airworthy again or serviceable? And you're not going to learn that unless you've done it a few times. Nor should you feel comfortable touching somebody's aircraft if you don't know what you're doing. There's certain things on the aircraft that I'm going to defer to somebody else who knows, even though legally and on paper I could do the repair.
Yeah,
Um,
but do you know the nuances of a Hartzell propeller? I mean,
no, and
just
that
because, I mean, so so what? You got an AMPIA, but if you haven't gone to the Hartzell, you
yep,
know, update or if you haven't gone and learned gone through the manufacturer's training, you're useless. So how did those 30 months,
it's
make
a
you a
good.
Hartsville expert? It didn't.
It
So
didn't.
so you're what I'm trying to get is, yes, you don't want a puppy mill in the sense where you just go pass a written and slap an AMPIA on somebody. No, no, no. You might get your AMP just by passing a test, but you're not going to be an IA until you have proven that you can look at something and say that ain't right. uh, how I don't think the AMP side gets that on day one after 30 months and passing a test.
No, and the LSRMs that come out of class don't either. And
Yes.
the only difference is the LSRMs, it has to be something that you've done before. And an A&P, um, I'm not certain on this, but I think they're authorized to do it right out of school. Like I
Oh
think they
yeah, I
can.
mean that's a big. I'm pretty sure in the IAs, if you got an AMPIA, you could sign off on anything.
Yep.
But
So how do you feel about owners and builders working on their own aircraft?
I think that's good. But again, if that airplane is going to be rented by somebody or used to carry passengers for hire, that plane has a big X on it.
So the SLSAs that have been around for 20 years, they lease those out, they rent those out because they're special like sport aircraft. They can be leased and rented out, and the only difference is they get 100-hour inspections just like your Cessna or your Piper would that are being leased out. Um,
Yeah,
and
but there's an
that's required for anything that's being leased or rented like that.
yeah, no, but that has an independent mechanic who just, again, it goes back to my worry about, you got this person who passed a test, had 30 months of looking at spam cans that I'm used to flying. Now he's got this other one. It's going to take some time for him to catch up and understand that platform. Is he going to be, is his decision going to be safe for me? I hope so, but he's not the owner,
We hope
right?
so.
The owner, the owner can pencil whip whatever because it's his plane, he can do whatever. That's fine. But once you start renting it out, I think you need to have like an independent shop say, yeah, this is good. And if you're an AMP, an IA, and you trust that owner that's done good work all the time, then you'll sign off on that aircraft before it's rented out. It's um, kind of like the states used to use inspection stations. The Not that inspection stations took cars that didn't need to be on the road off the road, but that's kind of the concept with uh, if you're going to have an aircraft owner allowed to do maintenance on their aircraft, any maintenance, new engines, turbos, whatever the heck they put in that thing. As soon as that thing gets approved to go be a rental somewhere, there's got to be some kind of inspection done by an independent expert and signed off by some IA or something, because it's you're putting other people's lives in that platform that, I mean, 99.9% of the time that person that is a good person, but there's always that bad apple, you know, cuts corners, doesn't tell you they cut corners. All of a sudden, your wing falls off and, oh shoot, you're in trouble. Um, I think
Yeah.
your plane uses push rods to move the controls, right? Uh you don't have wire
Yes.
and pulleys. See, so that
So the rudder is wire and pulley.
yeah,
The
but
rudder is still wire and
that's,
pulley.
in my mind, that's a big uh that's a big one. I mean, do you I'm pretty sure it's not cheap to replace that cable that
No,
that moves your rudder. Um,
nope. And it has to be at a certain tension. It has to be lubricated during inspections. There's all kinds of maintenance that goes along with that.
yeah, and owner gets distracted, owner gets, a little cheap. How do that's one of the things that, I know you probably could land without a rudder, but like on the 172s, you got everything on those cables. You got aileron, elevator.
Yep.
So I really think that eh, if you're gonna take something that was maintained outside, or something that allowed uh uh just pretty much any owner to do the maintenance, if you're gonna let passengers for hire or it be rented by just anybody, the general public, there needs to be some sort of verification of that platform that it's not in disrepair.
Yeah, that's where the 100-hour inspections are. They come in and are required. So I agree with you. And that's true if you're flying an experimental with the letter deviation authority for training. Because an experimental, the only person that can receive training in an experimental is the owner. That's kind of how that's set up today. Unless you get a letter of D aircraft in flight training, which they do allow, especially I think we were discussing this before. Like if it's a particular model of aircraft and there's only 7 or 10 of them that exist in the US, well, how do you go get your transition training? You're going to have to go and fly with somebody. So those LOTAs have their time and place, and the Lightning's a good example of that. I went and took familiarization training at the factory, and every single one of the Lightnings that I've flown has been experimental. They have SLSA Lightnings out there that um, are certified under the SLSA Light Sport, the old standard that can be flown for hire and compensation. Um, but most all the Lightnings are experimental for various reasons that make sense.
Yeah,
So
and then from a consumer perspective, if I'm a pilot, and I need to go learn how to fly a Lightning, let's say, I gotta I gotta talk to somebody that's flown Lightnings to know that that instructor is, worthy of telling me, hey, you're good enough to fly this plane by yourself. Because a CFI is, I mean, don't get me wrong, a CFI knows a lot about flying, but do they know how to fly the Lightning? Do they know how to fly that one or this one? I mean,
yep,
maybe
and
maybe maybe the pilot needs to be able to see the instructor's endorsement. I mean, it,
that's why I went to the factory in my case. But you're right. One of the first things I asked the factory was how many hours does the CFI have in this type of aircraft? Because I wanted to know, like, hey, is he a new CFI? Has he been flying these for a while? I got very fortunate because the CFI that helped me had several years working at the factory, working for the factory doing instruction, and he knew the airframe very, very well. But it's not required. Like as long
no,
as
no,
that person,
it's not required, but as a pilot,
you
you
want to
would,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I, I, I think the only other person that might know a little bit about is the test pilot, the one that actually had to test that. So if the CFI hasn't at least done a checkout with the test pilot, are you really getting good instruction?
yeah,
Not
that's
the
about.
FAA. I mean, that's more of a quality thing for the pilot. Not it's not. I don't know that you need the FAA telling people, how to do instruction, but maybe as a pilot, you need to make sure that you're buying quality services for that type of stuff. So maybe, if I decide to buy a sling, I would want to get a list of instructors who have done a sling, that have taught people how to fly slings. So when I
Yep.
go get familiarized, I'm getting good, somebody that hey, that's not a good thing. It worked for you this time, but you're developing a bad habit. You need to do it this way, or somebody that knows the platform.
To your point, like that's a cautious pilot putting in the time, the research, the effort, energy, making sure. And this speaks a lot to your thoughts of how you pilot aircraft. You're thinking about the maintenance, the airframe, who's maintaining it, how it's going to be flown, if it's going to be leased, what are the characteristics of that airframe, how good is the CFI that I'm learning from, what don't I know? Like you're asking yourself all those questions, and that's what this is all about. And I'm really hoping that the pilots that are out there with these new rules and new ways of doing things, I'm really hoping that we can be successful and get some new designs and get some new aircraft. I mean, after all, with a private, if we get four-seat Mosaic compliant aircraft, a private pilot is going to be able to fly that day, night, and potentially in weather. Um, so it's one of those things where we got to make sure that we as pilots are informed and uncovering all the things that we need to know about the specific airframe. I'm excited for Mosaic, but I again like having this conversation. There's still things that I guess time will tell. So, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about today, Joe?
No, I think we covered a lot, so I appreciate you reaching out. Hopefully I was able to give you some good insight to uh a, from a pilot's perspective.
Private pilots, and that's why this is a good conversation to have because I've got some different concerns than you do. It's because we operate a little bit differently in how we fly, but this is how we learn is to have the conversation. And I'm hoping that others that stumble upon this will also think about those individual questions that they need to ask. I mean, we didn't even get into basic med and like a lot of the we did talk about the driver's license, medical, but basic med's a different animal because once you talk to your doctor and get the form done and do the class, now you can fly at night. And there's so many different changes. I just hope that we as the pilot community can, you know, figure out like what is the proper way to do these things and we don't end up introducing more issues. I think there's a lot of questions that we'll have answered over time, and hopefully EAA and AOPA, um, the different organizations out there that are advocates for us, can keep on top of this and ask the right questions. I know one thing. This is vector billing using ADSB data. That's something that's really, really bothering me right now. I don't, I don't like the fact that they're using ADSB data to send us a bill when we land at an airport.
Well, I think EAA and AOPA are working on that for us, I hope.
Definitely hope so because it's one of those things where we spent probably $1 billion or more as a pilot community to equip, and now they're using that to track us, and it's like for a different purpose. So hopefully they get that resolved.
Yeah, I think there was I saw one of those newsletters saying that that one of the I can't remember what state, a state had already like passed legislation that didn't allow it to be used for tracking or reimbursement type stuff. Can't remember what state
Yeah,
it was.
I know some pilots have been doing privacy on their registration. They just register to an LLC and they don't put an address, just a registered agent, so Vector doesn't know where to send the bill. So, but I'm hoping that Congress or one of these organizations stops it. I don't have a problem paying for facilities and services at the airports when I'm traveling, but I don't want them using the safety devices to as the mechanism to bill us. I think that's crazy. So, anyway, well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time and talking with me, Joe. And the big thing is getting information out to people, making us think about it and talk about it. It's all real good, and I just hope when you get out and fly, you're flying safe. And I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
All right. We'll catch up later.
All right, sounds good. Have a good day.
All right, bye.
Bye.